Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be unboxing, assembling, taking a first look, and reviewing the ActBest Stiker moped style e-bike. The Stiker is an affordable, modern moped style fat tire electric bike that currently retails for $799 and usually costs around $2,200. The Stiker aims to bring the increasingly popular fat tire moped style e-bike form factor to an affordable price range. This bike is designed primarily for urban environments, but is capable of some off-roading with its large 4x20 knobby tires and full suspension. In this holistic video, we will show you everything there is to know about the e-bike, from receiving the package and assembly to the performance you can expect. Getting into the unboxing, the Stiker comes in a massive, thick cardboard box, weighing in at 104 pounds. The box is made from a very durable, stiff cardboard, with staples reinforcing the edges for safe transit. Though not necessary, it's very helpful to have a second set of hands to unbox and set up the bike due to its size and weight. The box opens from the top, which makes taking the heavy parts out a little bit more difficult. The bike and accessories came very well packed in foam, with zip ties tightly holding anything that could rattle. The majority of the space inside of the box is taken up by a giant chunk of bike parts bundled together, but there were loose components that were easily accessible towards the top. Before taking out the bike, I removed these items, which include these smaller cardboard boxes taped together, the front fender, and the rear fender. To remove the bike from the box, I tilted the box on its side and then carefully slid the big bundle out. Having a second person for this part would have definitely helped. At the bottom of the box, I also found a few more accessories. This included one of the rear shock absorbers, the hardware for the shock absorber, a threaded rod with flanged nuts, and a bubble mailer pouch. The majority of the accessories and other components to the bike are contained inside of the larger of the two cardboard boxes taped together. First, there is the headlight to the bike, which is a large, round moped-style model. Second, there was a pump, which felt quite cheap, but was still a nice touch to inflate the tires if need be. Next, there were the pedals, which are just standard bike pedals. For assembly, ActBest included a whole toolkit bag, which contains a variety of wrenches, Allen keys, and screwdrivers. Towards the bottom of the box, there were these metal brackets, which are to mount the light to the front fork of the bike. The light mounts also consist of these small, seemingly unimportant pieces of plastic. For visibility at night, there was a small standard front reflector. Lastly, there was the instruction manual of the bike, which contains great information on assembly, maintenance, and bike functionality. The second smaller box holds the charger for the bike, which looks like a pretty standard 13S charger. The charger charges at a rate of 2 amps, which is quite slow, giving the bike a 7 to 9 hour charge time. The charger uses a very typical DC barrel jack plug and also includes a generic US wall power cord. The last accessory is contained inside of the bubble mailer envelope and is a combination lock for the bike. I've been using this lock on the bike, but only alongside others. I'm not sure that I would trust the quality to hold the bike, but it's better than nothing. And that's everything that's outside of the big bundle. This section will focus on assembly, so if you wish to skip right into the first look and review portion of this video, check the chapters built into this video. ActBest also has their own assembly video, which is very similar to this short tutorial. Before doing any assembly, I first had to remove all of the zip ties and foam from the frame. The bike came very well packaged, so this took about 20 minutes. The first step in assembly is to mount the handlebars to the front fork of the bike. First, unscrew the 4 bolts on the handlebar clamp, then remove the top half of the clamp, slide the handlebars into place, and then add back the top half of the clamp. The angle of the bars can be set to preference during this step to provide the most comfortable ride. After finding a good position, fully tighten the bolts to clamp the handlebar in place. The second step is to install the second shock absorber in the rear suspension. One of my shock absorbers came already half mounted, while the second was just loose in the box. In any case, both of the shock absorbers mount at 2 places using a nut and bolt. The first bolt goes through a tab of metal, cantilevered off the frame of the bike towards the top front of the back wheel. The second bolt goes through a bracket located near the derailleur of the bike. Getting the first suspension bolted in can be tricky with the swing arm freely rotating and the weight of the bike, so having another person is very helpful for this step. The third step is to mount accessories to the handlebars. This first includes the display screen, which clamps onto the handlebar nicely and is fixed down using an Allen key with 2 bolts. Second, there is the front reflector, which also clamps onto the front handlebar and is tightened using the included screwdriver. The fourth step is to mount the headlight to the front fork of the bike, which I found was the most confusing and least documented step. First, fix the two brackets to the light using the bolts already threaded in the light on arrival. When mounting, ensure that the light housing is vibrationally isolated using the included rubber washer. Next, manipulate the mounts and light to clamp around the front fork loosely. With the mounts loose, add the seemingly unimportant but crucial plastic parts between the front fork and the clamp. Bending these in the right orientation is important to get a good mount. To fully clamp the light to the frame, take the smaller metal piece of the clamp, slide the notch through the slot, and then fasten both pieces together using the included nut and bolt. The fifth step is to mount the front wheel to the front fork. First, remove all hardware already on the wheel axles. Next, lift the front fork off of the ground and slide the axle into the slot on the front fork. To lock the wheel on, add back the flanged safety washer with the tab pointed up, the second washer, and the flanged nut. The sixth step is to mount the taillight to the bike, which just takes 2 nuts. The seventh step is to mount the front and rear fenders. The rear fender mounts at 3 places, 2 on the sides next to the derailleur and 1 in the center at the front of the fender. The front fender also has 3 mounting spots, 2 on the sides of the front fork and 1 in the middle of the fork. The fenders have some play, and it is important to adjust them as needed so that the wheels do not rub against them. The eighth step is to mount the pedals to the cranks of the bike. These simply thread into the cranks. Each side is directional, threading in different directions, so it is important that the right pedal goes on the right crank and the left pedal goes on the left crank. The last step was to connect all of the cables near the screen of the bike. They are all color-coded, which makes it quite simple. And just like that, the bike is pretty much ready to go. The total assembly time for the bike took me about 2.5 hours solo with filming that also slowed me down quite a bit. I'd estimate it takes around 2 hours to fully unbox and assemble the bike. Now that we have finished the assembly, we will take a first look at the bike, going over the components and some key features. First, let's talk about dimensions. The bike is 64.2 inches long with a 42.9 inch long wheelbase. The seat sits at 33.46 inches and the handlebars sit at around 43.3 inches. The handlebars are 26.4 inches wide. The seat on the bike is a non-adjustable moped-style saddle, meaning that the bike is designed to be one size fits all. Consequently, the only way to adjust leg position on the pedals is to scoot farther back on the seat. The seat is extra long with about 22 inches of sitting length. ActBest advertises that the bike is suitable for riders from 5'3" to 6'4" and has a weight capacity of 360 pounds. The overall bike weight is 84.9 pounds, which is quite heavy, but not atypical for this style of e-bike. The frame of the bike is made from carbon steel tubing with a retro moped-style aesthetic that I personally love. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this bike is technically full suspension with both a front suspension fork and 2 shock absorbers between the seat and the rear wheel. The front suspension has an adjustable preload to tune the bike for rider weight and riding style. The wheels on the bike feature 20-inch by 4-inch fat knobby tires, which employ an aggressive wide tread for maximum grip. The width and tread style provide good traction on a variety of surfaces, making off-roading possible while ensuring the bike does not sink as easily in soft ground. Both wheels also have fenders to prevent debris and water from flying up. While the bike may look like a moped, it still has pedals and features a 7-speed Shimano derailleur to adjust pedal difficulty on hills. For brakes, the Stiker utilizes mechanical cable actuated disc brakes. I would have liked to see hydraulic brakes for this type of bike, but cost had to be cut somewhere to provide this price point. Now shifting over to the electronics, the Stiker has a hub motor in the rear wheel with 1,500 watts of peak power. 1,500 watts is on the higher end for these budget moped-style bikes, with many advertising a maximum of 750 watts. Next, the battery is enclosed in a nice plastic casing for weatherproofing. The pack is in a 13S configuration with a nominal voltage of 48 volts and a 15.6 amp-hour capacity. This means that the battery has a capacity of 748 watt-hours. The design uses these prongs on the bottom slide that slide into the rail on the bike for easy connection. The charge port for the battery is on the side under a rubber cap. Because the battery can be removed, it can be charged separately off the bike. A red main power switch to the bike is also found next to the charge port. On the top side of the battery, there is also a battery light indicator. The side opposite of the charge port and power switch has the keyhole to lock the battery onto the bike, which is crucial to secure the battery when riding. Now, moving over to the controls for the bike. The far left side of the handlebars features a panel with 2 push buttons. The top button is latching and turns the bike lights on and off. The bottom one activates the horn when held down. A little farther over on the left side, there is a second control panel with 4 buttons. In the inside face towards the rider is a secondary power switch, which turns the screen on when held. The top button shifts up the speed mode of the bike, and the bottom button shifts down the speed mode. There are 6 modes in total, ranging from 0 to 5. The middle button cycles through the screen display options. The screen is right in the center of the handlebars and displays live data like speed, battery, mode, odometer information, and power draw. Moving over to the right side of the handlebars, there is the gear shift mechanism with a button to shift up and a paddle to shift down. To the right of the gear shift, there is a throttle which can be used to power the bike without pedaling. Overall, the Stiker has very basic and simple to use controls with an intuitive display. The bike also features integrated lighting for riding at night. I love the retro motorcycle headlight aesthetic and have been impressed by its brightness. There is also a tail light on the back, which is powered from the bike battery and responds to brake input. Overall, the components on the bike look pretty typical. The bike is very similar in geometry, style, and specification to similar moped-style models. The standout feature for me is the 1,500 watt hub motor. I also appreciated the fully integrated rear light. The review section of this video is split into categories detailing various important specs and aspects of this bike. These can be found and skipped to using the chapters built into this video. The first spec is the top speed of the bike. ActBest advertises that the Stiker has a top speed of 28 miles per hour, which is the upper limit of a Class 3 e-bike. On our speed tests, we were easily able to hit a top speed of exactly 28 miles per hour using either the throttle or pedaling. The top speed of the bike is limited depending on which speed mode the bike is in, so this is only possible in mode 5. In the highest speed mode, this bike is quickly able to reach top speed with the powerful 1,500 watt motor, unlike some other models that take a little longer to reach top speed. As a result, I was easily able to cruise in the high 20s on this bike. The advertised range on the Stiker is dependent on how the bike is ridden, so this specification is very difficult to quantify for everyone's use case. ActBest claims that the bike is able to go anywhere from 45 miles to 75 miles on a single charge using pedal assist. ActBest also acknowledges that range can fluctuate depending on the riding style and conditions of the bike, which is what we found. While testing the bike, we tended to use a mix of pedaling and throttling in mode 5. For our range test, I would estimate that we used about 60% pedaling and 40% throttling. Doing this, we were able to achieve 28 miles on a single charge, which falls short of their advertised mark. These results were achieved using a 150-pound rider in 70 Fahrenheit degree weather on moderately hilly terrain. If pedaling more and using a lower pedal assist mode, then more range is definitely possible. If fully on the throttle, then the bike would likely get even less. Either way, the advertised ranges are an absolute best case, so expect less than stated. It is difficult to put an exact figure on how much to expect from this bike, so our numbers should just be a data point on how much to expect if riding similarly. The range that we got out of the bike was more than enough for taking the bike out for fun and for mid-range commuting trips, and I'm not sure that I would often need more. Overall, I was pleased with the performance that I got given the price. The third topic is the hill climbing ability of the Stiker. ActBest does not list a maximum hill grade rating for the bike on their website, so we just took the bike through its paces on the hilly routes we ride regularly. My experience with this bike is that it can handle pretty much any typical hill using only the throttle, but that it will slow down significantly on steeper slopes. Its performance and speed on hills is a little better than some similarly priced moped-style bikes that I have tried with smaller 500 to 750 watt motors. Pedaling noticeably increases uphill speed compared to pure throttle, and there has never been an instance where the bike has felt difficult to pedal uphill even if the bike is moving slowly. Overall, the Stiker performs well on hills for its class, but won't fly up steeper inclines like more powerful vehicles. The fourth topic is the acceleration and braking of this bike. I was impressed by the strength of the acceleration on the Stiker the first time that I took it out for a ride, given what I have experienced with similar moped-style e-bikes. The 1,500 watt motor is a noticeable upgrade over bikes with smaller motors, accelerating the bike quickly up to top speed instead of needing a long straightaway. The acceleration right out of the throttle is very responsive, smooth, and easy to use. While the throttle acceleration was impressive, the controller's tuning on pedal assist acceleration left something to be desired. On startup, the pedals take a second to kick in before actually powering the bike, so I found myself throttling the bike to get off the line more often than not. Additionally, when transitioning from throttle to pedaling, the motor shuts off the moment I let go of the throttle, even if I'm actively pedaling. It then takes a second for the motor to re-engage, which I found quite annoying. Furthermore, the pedal assist acceleration does not really seem to correlate cranking speed to motor power. For example, any pedaling in Mode 5 causes the bike to attempt to go at full power. This makes it impossible to constantly pedal at any speed other than the maximum without accelerating. I eventually got used to these quirks, but they are a sign of lack of refinement on these cheaper moped-style e-bikes where pedaling is not always the focus. While the pedaling startup is weak, the acceleration of the bike under pedaling while already in motion is substantially stronger than just using the throttle. From our tests, the bike takes 21 seconds to reach top speed from a standstill using just the throttle, compared to just 16 seconds by pedaling. Shifting over to the brakes, I was originally skeptical of the mechanical cable brakes on the bike. So far, they have proved to be strong enough with a really solid stopping power in any instance that I have needed them. The brakes do take some getting used to, as they are not as responsive and linear as hydraulic brakes. They do not really engage well until halfway on the trigger. In conclusion, the Stiker's acceleration is surprisingly strong for a moped-style e-bike with a punchy 1,500 watt motor that delivers smooth throttle response, though the pedal assist system feels a bit unrefined. While the mechanical brakes aren't as responsive as hydraulic ones, they still provide solid stopping power once engaged. The fifth category is the ride feeling and comfort of the bike. First, it is crucial to note that this bike is one size fits all, as the seat does not adjust. The only way to adjust the pedaling position and general feel is to move back and forth on the seat. With these moped-style bikes that have long seats, it is especially hard for taller people to get an ergonomic pedaling position. This bike is definitely pedalable, but it seems like it is designed more with aesthetics and the throttle use case in mind. If you are looking for an e-bike that you want to pedal, I would probably not recommend this one, as there are other more practical e-bikes with real height adjustable bike seats. While the bike is not particularly comfortable to pedal, the seat itself was actually relatively comfortable just for sitting and cruising on. The seat has a slight bit of curvature to it, which I found makes a big difference for me over flat moped style seats. The bike overall is very comfortable and smooth. The extra thick 4-inch tires smoothen the ride and eat up anything in their path. The full suspension on the bike also helps tackle all sorts of terrain very easily. The rear shocks felt great with enough flex for a springy ride, but enough stiffness to handle bumps at speed. I felt comfortable bombing through urban environments knowing that the suspension and tires would handle everything easily. The weight of the bike is another thing that is noticeable in the way that the bike rides. At 84 pounds, the Stiker feels much heavier and harder to maneuver than a typical bike. That seems to be the reality of these heavy moped-style bikes, which have these bulky frames and fat tires. What really stood out to me about this bike is how effortless, playful, and carefree it feels. Riding it turns even the most routine trips into something more dynamic, weaving through turns, leaning into carves, and actually enjoying the ride. This form factor is certainly not the most comfortable or practical for commuting, but it does win a lot of points for style and fun. The next category that we have is off-roading with this bike. ActBest heavily advertises this bike as being all-terrain compatible, which is true to an extent. The Stiker works well on compact trails, dirt, gravel, and grass. It has pretty good traction on rough surfaces with the wide knobby 4-inch tires. The full suspension is also good enough for a comfortable ride on these rougher surfaces. The fat treaded tires in particular make a world of difference on these types of terrain, as they prevent the bike from sinking, increase traction, and are just comfortable overall. I wouldn't take it deep into technical off-road territory, but for casual trails and light adventure riding, it holds its own. Taking the bike off-road opens up so much awesome terrain, making the bike just that much more fun to ride. That versatility of this bike on roads and light trails is a big part of what makes this e-bike so enjoyable. Our last section is the Miscellaneous Topics section, which includes all of the other things that we noticed about the bike that are worth mentioning. First, I wanted to touch on the built-in lighting. The headlight is a game changer at night, providing sufficient brightness to navigate dark roads and increase visibility. The headlight itself is also a great visual design choice for the aesthetic of the bike. I also really appreciate the built-in taillight of the bike. Some moped-style models in this price range have taillights that are externally powered, so the full integration of lighting into the bike yields a more refined finish. Lastly, I wanted to touch on the design of this bike. Moped-style e-bikes have become very popular lately, especially with popular mainstream companies like Super 73. This style of design makes for a fun ride feeling and is often perceived as being a cool thing to have. The downside to this form factor is that the bike is not as comfortable to pedal because it is not adjustable. I think a lot of people are probably looking at bikes like this because of their aesthetic and design, so truly thinking about use case and practicality is an important consideration. I personally love this style for a fun cruise, but my dad, for example, is less of a fan because it is not as practical. After riding the ActBest Stiker around for the past few months, here are my concluding thoughts on this e-bike. For $799, this moped-style e-bike has fantastic performance and value. The Stiker has a top speed of 28 miles per hour, at least 28 miles of range, and a 1,500 watt peak hub motor that yields great acceleration and hill climbing. The aesthetic and design of the bike look amazing, and the bike has a really solid build. My only two complaints are the quality of the pedal assist from the controller and the lack of hydraulic brakes, which reflect where costs have been cut. Overall, I have been blown away by the Stiker and would recommend taking a look at this option for anyone searching for an affordable moped-style e-bike. That is all we have for this review on the Stiker. If you are interested in learning more about this product, we will have a link to it in the description below. If you have questions or comments, let us know in the comments section below, and also make sure to tell us which e-bike you want to see reviewed next. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more portable electric vehicle reviews. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.